I did have a big trauma at 19, and we all think that we can let those things go, but they actually live inside of us for many, many years, right, until we actually do something about it. And my mind just spun out of control. I could not stop it spinning over and over, like what they'd said, what I said, what I could have done differently. So that was the opening. That was the little inkling that, oh, maybe my childhood is still affecting me in my 40s. It was finding my mother dead on the bathroom floor when I was 19. Now I'm in my 40s, so that's 2 decades later. And the tears from that event were still just under the surface. And that's when I realized we hold all those traumas and those emotions in our body physically.
Hello, beautiful souls. It is Sophia from Sacred You. Thank you so much for being here. Before we dive into today's podcast, I do have a small request from my heart. If our conversations ever resonate with you or have supported you on your journey, please subscribe to our channel or like this video. It helps us grow Sacred You, welcome more powerful voices into this space, and keep you connected to everything we share. Thank you for walking this path with us. Let us begin with today's conversation.
Welcome everyone to today's Pathways to Wellbeing with Sacred You. I am your host today, Tawana Yvette, also known by my native name, Thunderbird Rising. And today we have the honor, the privilege of speaking with Ann Hince. Ann, welcome. I am so glad you said yes to this.
Thanks, Tawana. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to the conversation.
Absolutely. So everyone, and your journey began with an unimaginable trauma at 19. Would you like to share who you are and how you got to there and what helped you get through?
Okay. So yeah, I did have a big trauma at 19, and we all think that we can let those things go, but they actually live inside of us for many years until we actually do something about it. So when I was in my early 40s, I started to unwind my past, which I will talk about in a moment. And it's been a journey for the last 18 years ago or so, until I've got to this place now where I have what some podcast hosts call superpowers. I can actually put my awareness inside my body and release tension in the connective tissue with the focus of my awareness. And I have shifted my skull bones, and my neck has straightened, and I have grown about an inch in my 50s, all because I've been reversing all this trauma and the tension that I've held in my body from my past. So finding my mother dead on the bathroom floor when I was 19 was like the big trauma that culminated 19 years of smaller traumas. But I was actually born with my right foot up against my right shin. So my body was twisted, and I've had scoliosis my whole life. So that was right at the beginning. And then at 6 weeks old, after my foot had been released, but not the rest of the fascia all the way up through my body, just the foot, I was adopted. I was handed over for adoption into a family that had already suffered a trauma because they had adopted a boy who became my brother, who was 2, and then they adopted another little girl. And the birth mother changed her mind, and they had to hand this little girl back, who they'd had for several months. And I was the replacement in the family for that loss. My mother didn't really connect with me right at the beginning because she was afraid the same thing would happen to me. But it didn't. And so we continued with life. And at 6 months, I moved to Barbados. At 2 or 3 years of age, we moved to Sierra Leone in West Africa. And while we were there was a house fire. And I was the one who woke up in the morning to find the flames coming through my bedroom wall. And so I alerted everyone. So that was quite a good trauma for a young child too. And then we moved to Hong Kong. When we lived in Hong Kong, when I was 9, I was sent to boarding school in England, which is a long way across the world from your parents. And I was sent to a boys' boarding school because my brother was there. So I was the only girl boarder there for the first year. And I was teased mercilessly by these boys in the age range of 9 through 13. That's not a great time. And so that was quite a massive trauma. And then in my teenage years, both of my parents became alcoholics. So life at home was hell. And, there were some other traumas in there. Being in the car when my dad drove over a girl's ankle in a market that was very busy in Hong Kong. That was actually a trauma that I didn't remember until I started doing this release work, but it was a good trauma at the time. So when I was 19, I found my mother dead on the bathroom floor. And when I was 21, I moved to the States, to California, hoping I'd left it all behind. But as I said, we don't do that. So it wasn't until I was in my 40s, and I had PTSD mostly from the alcoholism and my dad's anger. But I had an experience with 2 other women at my boys' school, and these women were nothing like me. They were very self-confident, self-assured, authority type women, and they told me I had done something wrong. And my mind just spun out of control. I could not stop it spinning over and over. What they'd said, what I said, what I could have done differently, just all those permutations for about 3 days. And it was at the end of that, I realized, okay, this is not normal. Most people do not behave this way to something that was really not a big deal. But I also realized it felt a little bit like how I would react when my dad would tell me I'd done something wrong. So that was the opening. That was the little inkling that, oh, maybe my childhood is still affecting me in my 40s. And that was when I started the unwinding process.
That's a lot to go through before the age of 19. And I know after we go through the unwinding process, I like the way you refer to that, the unwinding process, the healing process, that we're like, yeah, it served a purpose, blah, 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 blah. But I just want to acknowledge and honor you for being before us today, because a lot of people wouldn't have had the resilience needed to stand before us today. So thank you.
I was determined. I was determined to change.
I clearly see it. I clearly see it. So you found mom on the floor. What was life like after that?
It was tricky. When I found her, I had been alone at home. My brother had been at his girlfriend's house, and it was a new girlfriend. I had no idea. My dad was working in Saudi Arabia at the time. So I had to tell him, and he came home. And for those 2 years that I was still there, 2 to 3 years, I was actually about to begin my second year of a 4-year university degree. So I wasn't home all the time, but life totally changed. Right? Even though they were my adopted parents, that's all I knew. So my mother was what held the family together, and it felt like it crumbled afterwards. And my dad, as I said, was an alcoholic and had a very short temper. And my brother took a lot of that on. And he wanted me to stay and look after the household. And there was no way I was going to do that. So that's why part of the reason I moved to the States. I also knew my current husband back then, he was my boyfriend back then. But I just continued the way I'd learned how to be, which was suppressing everything, holding everything back, not thinking about it, just moving on and keeping everything suppressed. I didn't have much self-awareness. I just continued in life like most of us do until that event happened in my 40s.
And what was the event in your 40s?
The one I talked about with the 2 other mothers.
With the 2, okay.
Yes.
Just wanted to be sure. That's very traumatizing, very troubling. I lived in a very abusive household, so I definitely understand some of the things that you went through, and my heart does go out to you. So we've had all these traumas. We're in our 40s. What did you do to unravel?
Okay. I didn't know what to do to begin with, but it was in that
Right.
time frame I went to a doctor's appointment, and he was a
Mhm.
holistic physician. He was also a parent at my boys' school, so he knew me and knew that I was a stay-at-home mother with two young boys, right? I shouldn't have been too stressed, but he recognized I was stressed, and he asked me on a scale of 0 through 10 what my stress level was, and I said 8 out of 10. And then he asked me why. And it was that question that made me realize, oh, it was finding my mother dead on the bathroom floor when I was 19. And now I'm in my 40s, so that's 2 decades later. And the tears from that event were still just under the surface all those years later because I hadn't dealt with it. But he happened to know the technique that's called EFT. It's also called tapping.
Yes, yes.
It's short
I
for
love
emotional
it.
freedom technique.
I
And
love EFT.
yeah, and he tapped with me for about 15 minutes about my mother's death. I was able to tell the story. I was able to let the tears flow. And at the end of that session on my way home, I realized I could tell the story in my mind for the first time ever without all those tears. And that's when I
Mm.
realized we hold all those traumas and those emotions in our body physically, and that we
Yes,
can let them go. So that was
yes.
key for me. So I went home, I learned everything I could about EFT. It was in the early days of EFT, and Gary Craig, who developed EFT, gave it away for free. So anyone could go
Mm.
online and learn how to use it. It's
Mhm.
morphed quite a bit since then. And if you go online and you look at EFT videos, they're generally scripts. Someone's telling you what to, and you
Mhm.
tap through it. That's not the most powerful way to use it. You have to use your
Mhm.
own words, and you have to do it again and again with the same story. So I have an engineering background, so I didn't necessarily believe that this one experience with this doctor was going to change my life. So I
Right,
wanted to try
right.
it out. And at the time, I had a 19-year-old cat. I'm thinking it's actually 17, a 17-year-old cat at home at the time. And his kidneys were starting to fail. And I had to give him a daily saline shot, an injection, a saline solution. And I hated needles. I think most people do. But the first time I gave him that shot, my hand was shaking so badly. I knew it was going to be too stressful for me to give him one every day. So I thought, let me try out this technique and see what happens. So I tapped for about half an hour on every aspect of it. So I tapped about my hand shaking. I tapped about my fear of hurting my cat. And I tapped about all the memories from all the injections I had over my lifetime, because I had a lot because I traveled the world. And the next day, when I gave him that shot, the needle just slid right in. All that fear, the handshaking from the day before had totally disappeared. So
Mhm.
that's when I realized, okay, EFT is really powerful. And I want
Yes.
to feel that peace with everything in my life. Right? I want all that
Mhm.
fear to go, and I want to feel that peace. So that's when I
Mhm.
started to use it. I started to use it every day. I started to notice when I was emotional. I had two young boys at home, so it came up a lot. I was triggered a lot. So I would tap about how I was feeling, and I would feel that peace come through. So that was the beginning of the first step on my journey.
And yes, EFT, it is emotional freedom. They named it correctly because, yes, it works. It does reprogram the subconscious. It's amazing. I love it. I've attended a few sessions here at Sacred U with EFT, especially. I had a really bad event happen a few months ago, and I was sitting at my desk like, what do I do? What do I do? And the little bubble popped up on my screen and it said EFT is starting in 15 minutes because I have a little bubble that pops up every time something's happening with Sacred U. And I was like, you know what? Go for it. And I went in, and when I came out of that session, I felt so much better. It didn't take away what was going on, but it did calm my nervous system down enough to handle it differently. And that's the key.
Yes.
That's the key, I
Yes.
think. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. Now, I do think it can change what happens on the outside, but that's a deeper level.
Yes, it can. But it wasn't happening with me. It was happening with someone else, and they
Uh-huh.
were far away.
All
But
you
it
could
can
work on was how you
definitely
felt about it.
change.
Uh-huh.
Yes. Yes. I had to work on my nervousness and my anxiety about what was happening. This was with my daughter. Very close to my heart, but I still had to work on my own feelings about it. I couldn't help her in that moment.
Right.
Um,
Absolutely. I find our children are our biggest triggers. But when something happens to a child or something's going on, then I come back to EFT because it's very triggering. Yes.
it is. It is. And I would say it's one of the easiest ways to trigger me is my children and my
Yes.
grandchildren. I don't get triggered by much anymore. I don't even like the word triggered anymore. But one of the easiest ways to affect me is my children and grandchildren.
Yes,
So
it
you
is.
find this sing tool called EFT that does work, even though it may look silly to some people. I want to mention that because I have seen that on social media where people are like, you look silly doing this. What is that? No, I'm reprogramming my subconscious. That's what I'm doing.
Yes.
So,
Releasing the tension stored in the connective tissue, stored in the nervous system from
yes,
past events, because our neutral is no tension there. So we're releasing the tension. So always looking for the negative in EFT, which is hard for some people because some people have been so programmed to go for the positive, but it's only the negative that stored as tension inside of us. So that's what we're looking for. And over
mhm.
time, as I started using EFT every day and calming myself down, I realized I wanted more and I wanted it faster. I think a lot of people are like that. So I knew there was something you could do where you wrote down all your childhood traumas and tapped through them. And I did that. I wrote down every trauma, little trauma, big trauma, the phrases that my parents or my relatives would use, the teasing that happened, the phrases they would use. I wrote them all down. It was multiple sheets of paper. And I tapped through one each night for about an hour to an hour and a half each night. As I said, I was determined. And as I started to do this, so with like the example of my mother's death, that was a trauma that happened over a little period of time, right? So with the doctor, I tapped through it one time. So I would tap through it again from beginning all the way through to the end. Then I would go back and I'd tap through it again from beginning to end, over and over through the same story until all the emotions had disappeared. And then it became like a neutral event. I can talk about my
True.
mother's death easily, right, without the tears that used to be there. The emotions are no longer there. It's just something that happened. So
Without
that's
that
what I,
ache that sits here and all of that.
right. So that's all gone. So I did that with everything, with all of them. And it started to feel like I was living in a different reality because my mind, which had been so busy and so critical and self judgmental, became quiet. All those thoughts that I had in my mind, I realized had been programmed or resaid from childhood. Like I had taken my dad's phrases that he would say to me on as my own, and I would say them to myself or about other people. But once I had
Mhm.
worked through all the memories and the traumas around him, they were no longer inside my head. And it was wonderful.
Oh my goodness. I can feel the joy. It is wonderful when those voices are gone, when your body can rest,
Absolutely.
when you can sleep again, because when we're traumatized, that's why our mind ruminates so much, and that's why our sleep pattern is disrupted and all types of other things, right? Eating,
Right.
sleeping, losing weight. You retain weight, you might lose weight. All of those things are affected. So I love that you can do that. So what was your next step in your journey?
So what I realized as I was doing this work with EFT is that it's opening up the subconscious mind and it's expanding our awareness. So I became aware of my emotions, which I hadn't been when I started. I was just so
Mm-hmm.
suppressed. And then I
Mm-hmm.
became aware of the physical sensations underneath the emotions. When you feel something like frustration, where do you feel it in your body? Can you feel it in your body? To begin with, I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't, then I could. And at the time I was in a group, we were studying the Course in Miracles, and the guru, the head of group, would say every week, you don't have to meditate. It's all about feeling your feelings. Now, I did my
Yes.
EFT work in parallel with this group. So as the weeks went by, I began to feel my feelings because to begin with, I didn't know what he meant. And then one day
Right.
I thought, okay, let me try and feel my feelings because I was aware of them at this point. So I was doing the dishes at the time, and I would try to feel, with me, it was normally fear. So I'd try and feel fear. And I could focus on it. I could feel it in my sternum area, my solar plexus. But as soon as I thought a thought or moved or took a deep breath, I would lose my focus on it. So I
Mm-hmm.
realized I had to feel, I had to sense the fear and hold myself like a statue. No breathing in,
Mm-hmm.
no breathing out, just right there when I could feel the fear. And I would hold myself in that position. I would talk to the fear. I would talk to the tension,
Mm-hmm.
feel you right there in my solar plexus. It's okay. It's okay for you to relax and let go whenever you're ready, that type of thing. And of course, I'd need to take a deep breath at some point because I'd been holding my breath.
Yes.
And then I would do it again, think the same thought, feel the same
Right.
feeling
Mm-hmm.
until eventually it had totally disappeared. The fear was gone. So I would start doing that instead of EFT. I would lay on the sofa
Mm-hmm.
at night and I would bring collective traumas to mind because I'd worked through my personal traumas. So things like
Mm-hmm.
9/11, right? We all experienced our own personal version of 9/11. I bring
Mm-hmm.
those memories to mind and just feel the sensations and allow them to release. And it felt really good, right? Releasing tension that's been stored in the body for decades. So that was the second step. And then at some point during that process, I was laying on the sofa, feeling these sensations. I realized I could keep my awareness inside my body once the tension had released, which now I realize is the
Mm-hmm.
beginning of the opening of the inner or third eye. I had no idea at the time. I just knew it felt very different. So then I would do the same thing. I would find somewhere inside with tension, hold my awareness on it until I felt a release. And I would just do that
Mm-hmm.
over and over again. Just release tension in my body. Now I'm releasing tension deep inside my skull, inside my neck. And it's crazy old tension that's been there probably since I was born.
Oh my goodness. This is amazing. Yes, one of the things that I teach as well is you have to feel your feelings. And I also teach where do you feel them? So you're speaking my language when you're talking about that. And I also teach about what it means when you've got back pain or frontal abdomen pain or pubic pain, because I go up each chakra to teach people these are your warning systems. This is what tells you where your focus, your awareness needs to shift and move to. So you're definitely speaking my language.
Nice. Yeah, a
So,
lot of us try and avoid those things, right? We actually will look the
yes,
other way or we'll try and do something to avoid us putting our awareness or our focus on that. But your body provides feedback all the time. Your body leads you down this path if you're willing to listen.
exactly. I tell people surrender, just surrender,
Yes.
not to this, to the rest.
Right.
Surrender.
Although having said that, when I go back to the feelings, I held it at tension.
Right.
Then it would
Intentionally.
surrender itself, would
Mhm.
let go itself. So there's a slight subtle difference there. It took me a while to learn that.
Yes. It's wow. What an amazing story. So how do you manage life now as opposed to 20 years ago?
I'm much more relaxed, much more calm, not triggered. It's very nice. It's very different. And I very much take life as it happens. I'm going on a lovely trip next year. And I've been on a few really nice trips. And people always ask me, you excited to go? I know it's going to be lovely, but I take each day as it happens. So,
Yes.
so no, if I was excited, I'd be holding tension. I'm about
Yes.
letting go of tension. It's
Mhm.
a very different way of doing it.
I love it. I love it. I like that too, that when people ask you excited, I live in the day, I live in the moment. Once we get to this space of healing the big old traumas that come back to haunt us, we do tend to just want to be present because
Yes.
as children, we were not allowed to be present.
And we weren't allowed to feel the feelings that we didn't feel at the time.
No,
Yeah,
no, it was keep crying, I'll give you something else to cry for. Why are you
absolutely. That was
crying,
one
you
of those
wimp?
phrases.
Or yes, oh my God, I can go on all day about the Gen X phrases, but
Something you
weren't
just said
allowed.
then, something you just said then, I wanted to pick up on. So, through, you said things come back. They do come back to haunt us. I notice throughout my days what is coming back, what is triggering me still, because that is the next path of healing, right? That so I'm looking for things. So I used to, for a few years, I stopped watching the news while I was doing this
Mhm.
healing. Now I watch the news because I want to find things that trigger me still, because I know I work
Mhm.
on those, there's deeper healing. So for all of us,
Wow.
any time during the day, if we're triggered, if we're emotional, it's something that we can work on.
It definitely is. I agree. I agree. If we're not feeling peace, or at least in a control, if we feel like we're out of control of our feelings, yes, there's always something we can do about it. So I love all you're doing. You are so interesting. I could talk to you forever, but we are coming down to the end. So if you could give anyone advice who is just beginning to remember their traumas, because a lot of times we do forget for a number of years until we realize we've made a bunch of decisions. Why did we make all these crazy, terrible decisions? Oh, it links back to that. If you could give anybody in that state advice today, would it be?
Okay, two things. So to begin with, the first step that I always recommend people start with is just noticing during the day what you're feeling. Notice the feeling and give it a name. What emotion is it?
Yes.
Because when we do that, we have to go inside, we have to sense. And when we sense and we put a word to it, there's actually a little bit of healing that happens right there because you've gone inside and
Mhm.
you felt it. So
Mhm.
I would do that many times a day. Put a note somewhere,
Mhm.
put a reminder on your phone, and ask yourself how you're feeling. And as you do that, your awareness begins to expand. That's like the first
Mhm.
step. So then I'll go all the way to the end step. So I want people to realize how much more depth to life there is available to us once you have released all this trauma. Life is totally different, right? I've explained some of that. There's just a depth to life, right? If I'm aware of myself at a really deep level, I can see that in other people. I can see that in things that are happening around. So that's the reflection, right? It's
Right.
good to have a deep sense of awareness, but it's more than just thoughts and experiences. For example, hearing. Most of us just hear with our ears. But as our sense of awareness expands or deepens, we become aware in our body. So we can feel music throughout our body and not just hear it with our ears. And it's only people I have found that have a deep self awareness that can do that. But it makes even conversations deeper, right? because
Yes,
you
yes,
feel them
and
on a
more
deeper level.
meaningful.
You can sense when someone's telling the truth or not, right? You can sense things in other people. So it makes life more fun. Even singing, right? I've released so much tension in my head and my jaw that I can sing notes now that I couldn't sing before. That makes singing more fun, right? So I encourage people to do this work and to release all that
Yes.
tension from the past so that they can too find these abilities.
I love it. And you can sing now. I tell people when I go live, just because I can't sing doesn't mean I won't sing, and I will sing. So, because it's fun and I feel music. When I put music on, whether it's solfeggio frequencies or music, Motown, my mother was a huge Motown fan. So I know all of the Motown songs. I even know how to dance to them and things like that. But I feel it. I don't even need it to be loud. I just feel it in my body. When I was going through my awakening, I remember playing this one frequency based album just to sleep on repeat. And it wasn't until my phone would die that I would wake up, because that music, I could feel it in my cells and I allowed it to let me relax, which is what it was designed for. So, yes, we do get to a place where we feel it. And it's the space where the artist was when they wrote it, or when they released it, or when they said, yes, this is finished. We finally know what it feels like. So I thank you so much for your time and your unending wisdom today on Pathways to Wellbeing. And this is definitely something that people need to hear. So thank you for all of the work that you're doing. Everyone, her links are below this podcast. Please check out her YouTubes, her videos. She just wants awareness. She wants to spread awareness, spread the love, spread the joy, spread the peace, spread the transformation. So, with that, thank you for being a part of today's Pathways to Wellbeing podcast with Sacred You. And I thank you again, Ann, for being here, and honor you for the tremendous amount of work and transformation that you have gone through. And we will see you next time.
Thank you for joining us today and tuning into our conversation with Ann Hince, who reminds us of what is possible when we truly commit to healing. That life becomes richer, more expansive, and more connected when we release the tension of our past and deepen our awareness. If you would like to explore Ann's work further, be sure to check out her YouTube videos and other resources where she shares powerful insights on releasing trauma, expanding awareness, and reconnecting with the body. You will find all the details in the links below. And for more empowering conversations, tools, and strategies, do follow Sacred You on all our social media, or visit our website at www.sacredyou, that is the letter U.love, where you can check out all our upcoming workshops, events, community offerings, and our Soul Seeker quiz. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button today, or give us a like so that you never miss another episode. As Ann shared, healing begins with awareness. Simply noticing what you feel throughout the day can start profound transformation. She also showed us that trauma does not disappear on its own. It lives in the body until we consciously release it. It is about gently unwinding, step by step, allowing tension to dissolve and clarity to emerge. Until next time, stay grounded, stay inspired, stay connected, and keep walking your pathway to well-being.